Harper Audio presents Born Evil by Kimberley Chambers. Read by Annie Aldington. A life is created, a child is born, a beautiful gift, not one to mourn, a son for keeps, a love to gel, unless that child belongs in hell. Chapter 1. October 1990.
Look, Mum, there's no easy way for me to say this. You're going to go mental, so I'm just going to give it to you straight. I'm pregnant.
June Dawson felt the bile rise from her stomach and reach the back of her throat. Dropping the dishcloth she'd been washing up with, she clung onto the worktop for physical support. For a moment she thought she was going to pass out. Breathing in deeply and blowing out slowly, she somehow managed to steady herself. As she turned around to face her daughter, she felt every hope and dream she'd ever nurtured for her fly straight out of the window. Trying to speak, June found that her voice sounded anything but normal. She usually spoke loudly, but her words came out in no more than a whisper. "Is Billy the father?" Debbie stood, hands on hips, staring defiantly into her mother's eyes.
"Of course he is. I love him, Mum."
June fished around in the kitchen cupboards and found the bottle of brandy she kept there for cooking and medicinal purposes. She and her husband only ever drank socially. June poured herself a large glass and downed it in one, then immediately knocked back another. She was in that much shock. She could quite easily have swallowed the whole bloody bottle. With the drink going straight to her head, her voice suddenly came back and she decided to say her piece.
"You're going to have to get rid of it, Debbie. You're 18 years old, with your whole life ahead of you. Don't sell yourself short and end up with a no-good arsehole like Billy McDaid. He's a wrong 'un. Everybody says so, and far too old for you. He'll run a mile once he knows you're pregnant. You mark my words, he'll be off like a shot. Blokes like him are all the same."
Blinded by love and obstinate by nature, Debbie glared defiantly at her mother.
"Well, that's where you're wrong, Mum. Billy already knows about the baby and he's over the moon. He's dying for it to be born and can't wait to become a father. I love him so much and I'm keeping the baby, whatever you say. You're just going to have to accept it, or you'll end up losing me and your unborn grandchild. As for calling Billy a wrong 'un, you'd know all about that, Mother, wouldn't you?"
June looked at her daughter with a mixture of pity and disgust. She needed to talk to her Peter. He would know how to handle the situation.
"Get out of my sight, Debbie. You wait till Peter gets home from work. I'm going to tell him what you said to me and he won't be very happy." "As if I bloody well care. He's hardly me father now, is he?"
Debbie screamed and slammed the kitchen door. June sat down at the table, put her head in her hands and sobbed. Both her children had now fucked their lives up, and she wondered where she'd gone so bloody wrong. She'd disowned Mickey, her son, a while back, when he'd got caught hijacking a lorry load of cigarettes with a gang of well-known villains he'd been knocking about with. Her Peter had gone totally apeshit and demanded she wash her hands of the lad. It hadn't helped that the story was front-page news in the local paper. She and Peter had had to endure the shame, stares and gossip for weeks. Unbeknown to her husband, though, June still discreetly inquired after Mickey. She'd heard through the grapevine that he was due out of prison in the next few weeks. He'd served his sentence in Wormwood Scrubs and had written to her from here a couple of times, pleading with her to visit him. June had tearfully read the letters that her firstborn had sent and felt nothing but love and compassion for the son she still adored. But after careful consideration, she'd torn them up and severed all contact with him. It had been the hardest decision she'd ever had to make, but in her eyes it was the only one left to her. She'd had to choose a husband over her son. Now the same thing was going to happen with Debbie. Peter was going to go mad when he heard she was pregnant. unless Deb's agreed.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?